Nice tag.
Embrace the flavor of life.
The way I see it is you've got two choices. You can either keep pretending like nothing bad's ever gonna happen to you, and then when it does, you're saying, uh-oh, or you can get ahead of what's coming so that when it does, not if, you're ready for it. And you're sitting pretty, sipping on Mai Tais next to the pool, working on that Caribbean suntan, because you got it covered. So folks, it's time for you to learn the truth about money. It's time for you to take back control of your money so that you are ready for what's about to happen. By doing that, you're setting yourself up for absolute success. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And that's what I want for you, and I want to help you with that. So go to chrisnaugle.com and sign up for the Wealth Webinar. We do them every Wednesday at 1 p.m., and you need to be there because it's time.
For over 90 years, we've been crash testing our cars in the tireless pursuit of automotive safety. At Volvo, safety's been first since 1927. We've saved millions of lives with the invention of the three-point seatbelt in 1959. At Volvo, we've made driving safer for you and them. Visit safety.findlayvolvo.com to learn more.
So they say if you give a man a gun, he'll rob a bank. But if you give a man a bank, he'll rob everybody. The good news for you is Private Money Club runs solely on peer-to-peer relationships, which means no banks allowed. So finally, there's a community for real estate entrepreneurs where it is truly a win-win solution. This community is a place where you can connect with other lenders and other borrowers, and the end result's massive growth for you. You get to build your real estate empire, and you get to do it solving other people's problems. So if that sounds like a place you want to be, well then join us. Go to privatemoneyclub.com/Kelly. And if you want $500 off, just add the code Kelly500 and I'll knock $500 off the premier membership. We'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. My mouth is almost busting open this morning because I've been laughing so much, and there's been so much joy already before the episode starts. I had this silly idea when I was in Utah that I was going to ride up to the top of Guardsman's Pass. And if you're from Utah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not, it's the mountain that it's one of the highest peaks there in Park City, and then it drops down into Salt Lake. Well, we live in Park City, so my idea was to ride up Guardsman's Pass on my bicycle, which I'm not trained for, and then ride down into Salt Lake. And I just wanted to accomplish this thing, and that's what my goal was in July. Well, when I told my wife this, she said, "Dummy, you don't train. You're not that type of athlete. That's what people do that's their profession. That's what they do." And I said, "Woman, listen to me. I could do what I set out to do. I put my mind to it." So I went in a couple days early. I watched a documentary on Arnold Schwarzenegger. He got me pumped. I watched 4 episodes in a row. I was ready. The next morning, I got in my spandex. I went to the mountain, and I rode like 200 yards. And you know what I did? I stopped, and I quit. And I was like, man, this is enough. Maybe this was God's will for me just to do this. And then I tried to ride a little bit more, but my lungs were burning. I didn't understand this, though. My mind was there. My heart was there. I had listened to some gangster rap on the way there, but my legs were not prepared. My body was not prepared. And this was the dumbest thing I had done. Well, then I went rock climbing with my buddy, and, then we watched Free Solo, and I watched this guy do this thing, and I watched him. And right at the end, if you guys will watch Free Solo, the dude said, "I'm going to climb the mountain, but I'm not going to tell any of my friends because I'm not going to make them nervous, whatever it is." So he gets up and he does it in 3.5 hours. He goes up the Dawn Wall in 3.5 hours. And I'm like, this guy is gangster. I'm riding tomorrow, but I'm not telling anyone, just like the Dawn Wall guy. So I get up and I go on the mountain and I start riding, and then I'm pausing and doing all this stuff. And I peak the mountain. This is the greatest moment of my life. I'm thinking, man. And my wife is like, "Don't try this, dummy." But she didn't know I was doing it. "Don't try this because you could get hurt. Maybe on the way down. What if your bike, all this stuff?" I was like, look, on the way down, it's no big deal. But I got up to the top and didn't realize that this mountain is so high and so steep that on the way down, there was so much friction on my brakes. I had them locked that my tire exploded. Well, That's where my friend comes in. I'm on the side of the road and I see 4 people, amazing shape. They're incredible. They got USA on their back. And I see them and they ride by and they're like, hey, do you need any help? And I thought, I'm a man. I don't need any help from anybody. And they rode by, and then they rode by again. And they were like, you need some help? And I was like, well, maybe just this time. So they got off, they helped me, and honestly saved my life. Like, I was on top of the mountain, and I had no way home. But they get off the bike, help me out, they're smiling, they're helping, and come to find out, they're all Olympic athletes. And I looked at this young lady, she had her glasses on, she had her helmet on. I looked at her and I said, I'm gonna force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. So I want you to realize that even in the craziest, stupidest things that you'll ever do in your entire life, God is still going to be able to bless you if you'll just focus in on making friends. My dumb butt should not have been on the mountain. I should not have been doing what I was doing. But you know why I was there? Because I needed to make a friend. And that friend is here with me today, speed skating bronze medalist, Miss Mia Manganello Kilburg. So I said all the names. Welcome to the show.
It's great to see you, and that's Gweeny.
That's Gweeny. Let's see Gweeny too. Let's see. Is Gweeny right next to you?
She just won't. She's in the play mode at the moment.
Okay, so she runs away.
Oh.
So for those of you who follow Mia on social media, which you need to go and do it. She does have a video that I have a challenge with, though, Mia, because I have a daughter who's 14. I'm trying to show her women who are powerful in sports, who have a mentality. You moved to Salt Lake at 13 years old. You had an Olympic vibe in your mind. Like, you had that mindset. You're going after it. But tell us about this time when you drove the car for the first time and why I have a challenge with this.
I think you're talking about the Corvette.
Yes, I am talking about the Corvette.
Okay, so we've got a really cool 69 Corvette, and I decided one day I was gonna take it out. It sits in our garage, just building dust. No beautiful car deserves that. So it was a beautiful day. Gweeny and I wanted to take a ride. And so we're driving, everything's going smooth. And it was a great video opportunity. And so I casually whip out my phone and very quickly take a video. And it turned out really cool. And everybody's happy and safe.
Okay, so you're all going to be inspired by Mia today. You're gonna learn some great things about. We're gonna be talking about mindset. We're gonna be talking
do as
about,
I do, or
yes,
as I say,
it,
not as I
it.
do.
Yeah, do as you say. You said.
Say.
Okay, that sounds like my pop. Because there would be times where my pop wasn't doing. How early on in your journey? So, I mean, Olympic speed skating, but at the top level. I mean, you're a bronze medalist in the 2018 games. You went to the, you did 2018, and then you did, what was the other Olympics that you did?
22.
In 22. So, I mean, top level, how many people are on the team?
I believe we had maybe about 12 of us.
Okay.
Like on the speed skating team.
So, but let's put that in perspective. I mean,
I know, please.
Right? You put it in perspective for me, if there was only 12 jobs of what I did in my life, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no,
I wouldn't get the job.
I really, really love moments like this because it's very easy for us, myself, to get blinders on and just kind of focus on the moment and the downs and the ups, but you're just training. But it's nice to get the moment to recognize like what actually one has accomplished and take a moment to appreciate that.
I think it's unbelievable. So at what age did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
So I started roller speed skating at 8. I did that in Florida. So it's like really fast looking rollerblades. I did that competitively, like a handful of my past Olympian teammates also. And when I was 12, I dabbled on ice and I tried short track, which is just, it's easier to get to in Florida. So it's a hockey rink basically. And so I jumped on there, tried that, and really kind of fell in love. It was a new, exciting thing, and it was something that would get me ultimately to the Olympics. When I was, 12 and a half or so, my dad drove me out to Utah from Florida, and he enrolled me in a learn to speed skate camp out here on the Olympic ice. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sport in general, but then also the environment that we have here, being able to step into the rink and see Olympians and medalists was truly inspiring. And so did that camp, fell in love with it. We get back in the car, we're driving back to Florida. He's like, go ahead and call mom, tell her, we're headed home, and tell her you love it. Tell her you love it and you want to move, just kind of half jokingly. And so I did. Well, two and a half days later, we get back home in Florida, and she has the full living room packed, half the kitchen is packed, and she's like, all right, let's do this. And so in that moment, we had an RV, and my aunt and uncle moved into our home. We packed up the RV with everything we need, and we arrived in Salt Lake City on my 13th birthday.
What kind of pressure is that?
Ultimately, my parents are phenomenal. I never felt pressure from them. And not until I got old enough to realize what they actually sacrificed did I start putting pressure on myself and want to accomplish it for them. Ultimately, yes, this is a journey that I've wanted to take and accomplish, but I mean, I'm an only child. I'm all they got, and they just threw everything into me. And so in the end, I just wanted to do it for them.
What does it take to have that type of and when I've said it in the past, like to have that type of vibe or have that type of mindset? What does it take? Is this thing, Mia, is this born in, or was the type of competitive nature? And I see you, like you came to the Vibe Room recently in Salt Lake. You're focused, like it exudes from you, even when you're having a good time.
Yeah.
Is this born in? Is this a gene that a person has, or can somebody develop that?
I'm going to say all the above. But for me personally, I can't recall a moment. Maybe my parents are just geniuses, that they just knew how to deliver a message into someone without being direct about it. Both my parents are incredibly driven people. My dad was an athlete. He was also a speed skater, cyclist. My mother is the most determined person I know. When we have a job, it gets done that day.
Uh-huh.
And so whether it was that, just growing up with that kind of mindset, and, them showing it to me,
Yeah.
I think you're also born with it too. I
So
think it's
take
something that you're blessed with, that hopefully you're given the opportunity to see fulfilled.
Did you see it early on? Did you have, because I know you don't like to lose. Like I said something to you earlier before we started recording, and I noticed your posture changed. I said, I joked and said that you can't take your husband on a date ice skating, and you were like, you almost flexed
Fair.
on me. It was like Debo. You were like, yep, that's how it is. When did that flex? Like, when did that flex happen in your life, and when did you realize, like, I ain't losing? You know what I mean? Like I ain't.
Yeah. Looking back now, I've always had it. Which kind of just makes so much sense now. But just even in school, there was a mile record running, and I was determined to break that record and own that record, and I did. But because I had that drive and that determination, I think it was something that was just given to me. And luckily, like I said, I've been able to have the opportunities to showcase it and and nourish it so that it can become even greater.
Well, take us to this because I believe that there's a little triangle in life, right? And that little triangle is at the base of the triangle is your belief system, which is your heart set. On the sides of it is your intentions, which is your mindset, and the top of it is, and the smallest part of the triangle is your skill set, which is your actions. And
Sure.
most of the time, people come to a person like you and be like, "Hey, Mia, give me actionable items so I could be the best athlete possible." Well, if they don't have the right mindset, they ain't
Right.
going to be able to do what Mia does. But then I want to go deeper
Hmm.
because even if you have the right mindset, which we can learn that through books, through podcasts, through all these things, if you don't have the right heart set and your belief system isn't in line, all that mindset's going to, and the skill set's going to crumble anyway. So let's
Yeah.
go to your belief system, your heart set. Like, what were those principles that your parents told you or showed you that you saw from a very early age that was able to be the foundation to build the mindset, to be able to build the skill set of Mia?
I mean, the first thing that pops in my head is I can't fail. The failure isn't something that we looked at as a negative. It was something, you try, if you don't succeed in how you picture it happening, keep trying. They also always instilled in me that would always be there to catch me if I did fall. So, to this day, kills Craig, but I'm like, screw it, let's do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We have the foundation of family and God behind us, and there's really nothing that can break us at that point. So you might as well just jump.
Take us to that relationship with God too, because this is a place where I was having a conversation with my son this morning on the way to school, and it was amazing because I was like, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I've been not liking this one class." I said, "What is it?" And he said, "Well, it's social studies." I said, "Why?" He said, "I love the teacher. I love what's going on. I love my friends, but some of the things that they're saying, like Pop, I don't agree with." And I said, "Well, what is it?" I just asked him a question. He's like, "Well, they kept telling me that I used to walk on four legs, and that I came from a monkey." And this is a 12-year-old. This is a 12-year-old telling me, and I'm just listening. I'm just asking questions. And he's like,
Yeah.
"I don't like that." And I was like, "Do you believe it?" And he's like, "No, I don't believe it." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because God made me, and He made me perfect." Right. So,
Yeah.
but like, what were some of the things that your parents were instilling in you? Because I think if parents go too hard on the relationship with God early on, then we see what happens, right? We see most of the
Yeah.
time,
Kind of jump the other
you
way.
go the other way. How were
Mhm.
they able to masterfully, because you have such a phenomenal heart, you have a great relationship with the Lord, how were they able to craft that? And how can someone craft that for their children moving forward?
Um, so probably, not the most common situation, but I didn't grow up going to church. My father was one that grew up going to church. He's Catholic and taught by nuns and the whole shebang. And my parents owned a restaurant my entire life, well, up until we moved out here. And so the weekends were for us. It was the only moment we had. And I do remember growing up and asking, why don't we go to church? Because I grew up in the South. It was just something that you did every Sunday. And and my mom, you know, she gave me this just feeling. She didn't have to say much about it. We have an amazing connection where she gives me the eye, and I just know. um, but to me, it was the only moment that they could give me their full selves, and so we cherished Sundays, and it was our only real family day. Um, and what they always taught me every single day was, you don't have to go to church to believe in God, to have him believe in you or love you, make you a good person, go to heaven. You don't have to. You need to be a good person. You need to make good choices. You need to be kind to people. And ultimately that will be okay. Like God will understand, almost. And from that point on, like the kids that were upsetting me at school, making me feel bad that I didn't go or whatever, I was like, hey, I'm still a good person. And, that's all I need to know. So.
So at that time, right? So when you go, like you're raised in a thought process that you can't fail, or when I say
Yeah.
like, let's clarify that though, because what I heard from you was that your parents weren't saying you're not allowed to fail. It was that you're allowed to fail. Like it's just, you're just going to move through it. So you got the permission to try right away, right?
Oh yeah.
And
Instantly.
and be able to do that, and then you got this unwavering encouragement to it. Was there anything else that that kind of sticks out to you as far as the kind of belief system?
I mean, no, a part of it's just my drive. Like I am incredibly driven, and just I my deepest fear is unrealized potential. Like that is my ultimate, to my core. I don't want to, in my career, in my life, feeling that I didn't become the ultimate me. And so with that, that's a huge drive for me. And then to have the backing of my parents and now my husband giving me that encouragement and support to, attempt to realize that, I mean, that's basically all I need to get up
Where
every morning.
where do you think that fear, right? I always believe that there's some sort of, and my beliefs are off because obviously I believed I could ride up a mountain the first time with no training.
You did it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
You did
I
do
did.
it.
I did it later on, you know what I mean? And then I got ridden down. I got a ride down in a minivan. You guys, I told you that night. So, but you said that fear, right? That fear of unrealized potential. Was it something that you saw? Did you see other people? Did you see an aunt, uncle? Did you see things that made you say, like, I don't want to go towards that, and caused that fire in you? Or was that fire just, I mean, was it just there?
No, I think it's so I moved out to Salt Lake to skate at 13,
Okay.
and I quit when I was 20. I didn't realize my potential. Right? I quit. I was burnt out. I had been homeschooled by choice up to that point, from 6th to 12th grade. So I didn't have the social aspects that a teenager should have to kind of realize it's not all that great. And really appreciate what I had given to me. And ultimately, I think that was what kind of hindered my growth internally. I didn't really have to work for it. So I lost appreciation for it. It was something that I just did. It was something I was decent at. And so for me, it was very easy to walk away because I really, at that point, had lost the core reason of why I was doing it. And I stepped away for a total of 6 years. But within that first year, I started regretting stepping away. It didn't come to me directly as regret. It was just kind of a hole that was building up, missing the sport, which, after those 6 years, realizing that's exactly what I needed. I needed to miss it again. I needed to realize what it was that I was passionate about. Within those 6 years, I picked up cycling, and that filled that void of the competitiveness and the drive and competition and getting better and feeling strong. But it still didn't quite, complete me like speed skating always had. So on that 6th year, I came back out to Salt Lake and stepped on the ice, and it was just like, it was like coming home. Like, it was that first, I stepped in the ice, the first glide, you know, I went right into skating laps, and I just skated laps after laps after laps. And like, it just felt right. I knew it's where I belonged and where I was meant to be. And I get emotional about it because it's just, you feel such regret of taking advantage of an opportunity. And that session when I stepped back on, one of my very first coaches that I had when I started speed skating was there, and I was like, so what you think? And, you know, and he's like, I think we have unfinished business. And for me, I was like, absolutely. This is something that I've known I've always had in me, but I never really appreciated or realized what I had in front of me and given to me, and the talent I was blessed with, and the drive and the passion. And so from that moment on, I was just like, I can never do anything to its not to its fullest again. I forever want to realize my potential. So
let's go back to the 20. Let's go back to the 20 time, because I think this is a part that a lot of people won't talk about and expose. They talk about the mountaintops. They talk about, I mean, you're an Olympic medalist. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, that's just an unbelievable feat. You're one of 12, and you've made on the team. There's 12 jobs in our country, and you have one of them. So this is, but most people don't talk about they want to talk about the mountains, but they don't talk about when you start to descend into the valley. At that 20, when you step away, when you're burnt out, when you look back, what were some of the signs that you saw before the burnout actually happened, that it was coming, that now you can be aware of if that ever shows its head again?
I think it was unique for me just because so looking back personally, I would have gone to school. I would have exposed myself a bit more. I was so narrow focused on this one goal, which was making the Olympics, that I didn't care about anything else. When in turn, it was creating me to not really be a full human almost. And, you know, looking back, well, I mean, now knowing my teammates, they all went to school. They're currently going to school, you know, and they're doing great. They're also Olympians. And, you know, and I'm like, well, damn it. You know, like, what was I doing? Maybe that wasn't worth it or necessary. And to be honest, for me, I was an insecure little girl that, you know, I knew how to interact with people, but I didn't know the ins and outs of life and emotion. And, you know, in my eyes, it was, you know, I'm not getting better at this point on ice. I'm plateauing because I'm not having fun. I'm not giving my fullest attention and drive to this sport anymore. You know, so those are reasons why I was skating poorly. But in turn, it was because the grass was greener over here, you know, and maybe this is just what I was meant to do. And honestly, it's surrounding yourself around the right people, I think. In that moment, I had a couple of people that were kind of helping me venture off to the grass is greener over here. And, you know, while my parents are just begging me to just like take a second, just take a break. Maybe you want to come back, you know? And I was just, and I'm my mother's daughter. And I'm just like, no, I'm done. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to go to school. And, you know, I don't know. It turned into a way bigger thing than it needed to, than it needed to. But in turn, I think ultimately I'm blessed and grateful that it happened, because
Well,
I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So like everybody's like, would you go back? Would you change anything? And it's like, well, yeah, I'd change a lot, but no. you know.
so what were the boneheads saying? Like when you were saying you were so masterful in this, and you said there were some people and they were helping me on my journey and making this. Because no one talks about what the boneheads say, and when we expose it, like what were they saying?
They were telling me that speed skating only goes a certain time in your life, that ultimately it's a blimp in your whole life, and you need to prepare for your whole life. And skating's not worth the time that you're putting into it, that you need to put time into other things also. And you could do skating as you need to, but you really need to focus on your future. And which, yes, agreed. Plan B, lifetime, great. But I've got this much time to be a speed skater in my entire life. Like, I'm going to devote everything I possibly can and have to this moment. And if anybody knows it better, my husband does. Bless his heart. Because I've expanded my career a few times on him. But it's because I don't want to be 40, 50, have kids, grandkids, and, and not honestly be able to tell them that I gave everything that I could. And when I quit, I was the best that I could be. And, you only have a certain amount of time in your life in these kind of situations. And, once you're done, you're done. So why waste a day?
So take us to this, because there's talent, right? So there's talent.
Yeah.
You have that. You said, we asked, is that it thing? Is it born in, or can you develop it? And you were like, well, both.
Yeah.
You were blessed with amazing parents that were encouraging you, lifting you up, letting you know that you couldn't fail, encouraging you to try, being in that place and lifting you up. You also had the talent inside of you. Can you talk about where talent ends and hard work begins?
Do you see it in speed skating? Oh my God. So I think it varies for sports probably, but for me, you have to have the talent obviously is not enough. When you get to the level of the Olympics, World Championships, everybody's got talent. You can't fake it at that point. So, hard work is the only way to really accomplish the ultimate success, I feel. And but then, there's also times when you see someone that is the hardest worker out there, but doesn't quite have the talent as some of the competitors and isn't able to make that bridge. It's devastating to see. I've seen it too often, but it really just makes you appreciate what you've got and really try to make every moment count and drive each day.
Take us through the process too, because when I was talking with Emery, who Emery helped to save my life too. If not, I would still be on the mountain today. My beard would be longer. I would have a staff, and I would just be walking around getting in adventures. But you guys saved my life. He was talking about a very, very small percentage of preparation for speed skating is actually speed skating. And he was telling me about all the rest of this stuff. Can you take us inside like a day or a week of what Mia does to prepare for how long does your race last? Like when you do your races, how long do they actually last?
Yeah, so the 3K, for instance, is my longest individual race, time trial race. That is 4 minutes.
Okay. So you train for 4 years.
Yeah.
For how many minutes?
4.
For 4 minutes. How are you able to, like, well, answer that first question, because you didn't answer the first question, Mia. So answer my questions. That's why we're here, is for you to answer my questions, Mia.
Okay. Ready. What was the question?
You obviously weren't paying attention in class. But what I want to know, Mia, is the preparation. I was saying, when I was talking with Emery, that preparation, very little of that 4 minutes that you're getting prepared for is actually doing the thing that you're going to do for 4 minutes that you prepare for 4 years. You're doing all these other things to get prepared. Can you take us through that?
I feel like we've definitely got to be one of the few sports that does a crazy amount of other activities in order to train for their sport. So like, I was also a cyclist for a bit, and you got better at cycling, but thanks. You get better at cycling by cycling. Like, yes, you do a little bit of lifting, you in the winter, you can go cross country skiing, but ultimately you cycle to get better at cycling.
Yeah.
For speed skating, I mean, we inline, we rollerblade, we bike, depending on an injury or something, like we swim, we run, our coaches got us cross country skiing. Not a fan, but I did it. So like there's so many different aspects to building a great speed skater. I will say ultimately you have to be able to skate to be faster. So, but as a whole in our year that goes from April to March, and we get like 2 weeks off and then we kick back in it again, a third of the year we're actually skating, which is kind of crazy. And even if we are skating on top of it, we're still doing all the weightlifting, all the biking, and the inlining. Speed skating is a very technical sport, and it takes a lot of the little muscles in your body, all your stability muscles, which fatigue really quickly. And so to go out and do the amount of volume we need to do, you wouldn't be able to. Like, you can't skate for 2 hours straight. I mean, you can, it's not going to be quality. But so in turn, we jump on the bike and we bike for 2 hours or 3 or 4 or 5. So maybe ultimately we're lucky to be able to have other opportunities to prep our bodies so that we can save ourselves for that, few handful moments on the ice to be as fresh and competitive as possible.
Take us to the details of the speed skating, because this fascinates me. When Emery and I were talking about it, like, I learned drafting, not that I've ever helped someone to draft because I ride my bike too slow. No one wants to draft behind me because they're like, bro, I ain't getting any energy from you at all, man. But you shouldn't be. That was insensitive, your comment right there too. Mia. I was saying it. You can laugh, but you don't have to dig on me on that. And by the way, Mia, on the mountain where I almost died, Mia was doing laps and what do we call it? A return? What do we call that?
Just a loop.
Yeah, she's doing a loop, like where I'm doing it once for the one time in my life. So I just want to tell you that.
It's what I do, okay?
Yeah, but I'm telling you, like, good Lord.
But thank you for bringing that into perspective.
Yeah, it's no joke. Like, she was serious. I don't know how many laps she did that day, but you probably, like...
Yeah, we lost count. We did it for 3 hours, I think.
Okay. That's insensitive, too, Mia. That you could have just been like, I don't know. But...
I'm answering your questions, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it, Mia. So answer this question. Take us into the details of speed skating that we don't understand. When I said the drafting part, I didn't realize that drafting helps with the amount of energy that you have to output. And then let them know that the speed at which you're going, how tight you are next to the person, the margin of error in your sport, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, so aerodynamics in anything is incredibly beneficial. I'm pretty sure in cycling I found out that I think it's if you're going 13 miles an hour, like aerodynamics plays a factor. And for us in the event that the boy Emery and myself got a medal in the team pursuit, it is pretty much the ultimate factor of winning the race. You want to conserve the people behind you. And ultimately the second place is getting, I don't know what the numbers are, but then, a little bit of draft. And then the third person's getting a little bit more, so in the sense of the team pursuit, like maybe you put the weakest, obviously don't like to say that word, but in third so that they can support the most by pushing, but then also conserving the most energy. And so it's really finding a balance there of who needs to be in what position to benefit the most, to get the aerodynamics in order to put their full energy moving forward with the team.
How fast are you going?
So, I mean, me personally, maybe like 30
miles an hour.
Miles an hour, I think.
How
Yeah,
close?
I mean,
how close are you to your teammate when you're doing this?
oh, I'm like, so I put my hand up,
Uh-huh.
right? So we're pushing. So the ideal position is your elbow never extends. And so her butt is
Like right there. So it's amazing to be able to hear with Mia about how tight and close someone is when they're racing. And I hope every one of you guys understands, like when you're dealing on the Olympic level, I mean, only 12 people in the entire country have the opportunity to be able to do what Mia does. It blows my mind. And what it brings me to is a lot of times we have friends in our life that are good at a certain thing or bad at a certain thing or whatever it is. And imagine if you took this kind of concept and you said, hey, look, I want to draft, right? I want to draft and I'm going to be the one out front because I have the most talent within. We're bringing Mia back in too. So as we go, there she is, Mia. You just didn't want to answer any questions, right? So it's okay. So what I was talking about is it blew my mind because as you're talking about the drafting part, right? And you were talking about the people that you're around. So I took it back to when you were 20 years old. So when you were 20 years old, you were around people that said, hey, let me take the lead in your life. And you drafted behind them and they didn't get you that far, right? So you didn't give the lead position to the right person. You gave it to the boneheads. And that person slowed a little bit of Mia down. So she wasn't getting that Olympic vibe to it. So when you're going, so you were right at the point where you said your arm doesn't extend. Are you touching the person in front of you or do you just have your hand?
Oh, yes.
You're touching them.
Yes. Yeah. So the technique now in the team pursuit is to push the entire time. So there's three of us. The second place person is supporting the first. The third is supporting second and first.
Yeah.
The idea is to continue to create this funnel effect between the three of us. And then that pushes all of us forward. So yes, the gun goes off. We're all starting 50 meters. You get to the corner and you're pushing. Your hands on. Ideally, your hands on the entire time, and you're just as aerodynamic as possible. The image you want to see is when we're coming straight down the straightaway right at you, you're only seeing the first person.
So also too, like when you're going, there's certain hand positions. You said the arm not extended. The other arm, is that one the one behind the back?
That one is tucked behind. Yes.
Why?
Aerodynamics. If you're swinging an arm, it's hitting wind, you're getting drag.
And in your sport, my arm just moving could be the difference between me meddling and not meddling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We come down to hundredths of a second in our sport, which is mind blowing. but yeah, it's win or loss by aerodynamics and little things, and the marginal gains that you can find really make a huge difference.
So what are some of the other marginal gains? Because I always wondered that, like when I would see speed skaters and they'd have their hand behind their back, I was like, damn, they got swag, like, or they got attitude. You know what I mean? Like if you roll in like George Jefferson,
look, I can do
you know what I mean?
No
like,
arm.
oh, I can do it with no arm. That's what as a kid, I was like, man, that dude's got attitude. Maybe they need to check themselves. Maybe they need to be a little bit more humble. But talk to me about a couple other things, because I tried to this is the thing, man. I tried to get my wife to allow me to get a new bike. And I was like, baby, look at this bike. This bike. And I remember rolling in the first time. This was probably 15 years ago. And at the time, a $15,000 bike was like, whoa. And I was like, I looked at the bike and it was the one. And I was like, baby. And then the guy started telling me all the features and benefits. He said, sir, this one is this many ounces lighter. It has this type of aerodynamic. And my wife was like, your big ass is still going to be on it though, bro. Like, so it ain't going to change much. You know what I mean? And I was like, that is insensitive. But Mia,
I will always go to bat with you for a better bike.
Can you tell Brooklyn right now? Okay, it's going to make me better. Will it make me an Olympian? If
you work hard enough.
Thank you. That's what I heard was yes. That's what I heard.
So you're saying I got a chance.
that's where it is. Tell me about some of those other little marginal differences that you have to go through that most people never understand as an Olympian.
Hey. Sorry.
Hey, that's a marginal thing. You know what I'm saying?
Gweeny.
Gweeny, don't you know? I'm sure that everybody listening loves dogs anyway. He wants a... Oh, he saw a squirrel.
Yeah. Tack. My dog. Full force. So for marginal gains, we look at everything. First and foremost, you look at the skin suit. You can train your butt off day in, day out, but if you're in a skin suit that isn't as aerodynamic as it could be, or your other competitors, then ultimately you're not going to skate as fast. So that's really difficult. There's a lot of moments in speed skating that are a little mind gamey, just in the sense of like, no matter how hard you train, there's still different moments that can affect your result. So there's definitely some mental training that needs to go into that. Control what you can control, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, our boots are as aerodynamic as possible. We've got zippers or straps to cover the laces so that it's just a sleek profile. Our position that we try to skate in with the arm back, bending over, trying to keep your head down so that the air just slides off your head and off your back and, creates an arrow tail. Arm swings, like we said. In the team pursuit, there's a couple of, different ones. Ultimately, they always use the word hide behind the person that is in front of you. And in the team pursuit, it's really difficult because there's a lot of trust that goes into that, right? So if you're hiding, well, you can't really see where you're going. And so it's ultimately trusting the person in front of you to lead you to success. I'm going to give my full effort to push you across that line, but make sure that we get there and not break any rules by hitting a cone or doing anything like that. So
take us to 2018, right? So 2018 was it Sochi?
No, that was the one prior. It was in South Korea.
South Korea. So take us to South Korea, Olympic Village. You've trained for, this is pretty much your whole life, right? So, Except the 6 years that you were a bonehead and you gave up. Yeah, I'm just joking with you.
I grew as a human.
Yeah,
blah,
the
blah,
6 years. I mean, growing as a human. Like, let's toss that off to the side. Being a
Right.
real human being and socializing, things like that. Let's get back to the real reason why we're on this planet is to beat people. You know what I mean? So you go through that the 6 year. Let's just brush that on.
Yeah.
You come back. I'm thinking the Rocky theme, right? You come back, your coach says to you, like, I see we got unfinished business. Did the theme song start happening? And then take us to the village in Korea when you're about to smash people.
Yeah. So the theme song was definitely playing in my head. I had a lot of adrenaline.
Which one?
I mean, the Rocky, like,
I hope it didn't sound like that, Mia, because I don't know if that would get me hyped. You were not committed to. You weren't committed to that. Like,
I'm running up the stairs. So that first year back, I was hot, and I stepped on the ice. I tied the national record in the 3,000, which was like what was it? A 17-second personal from when I quit when I was 20. So right there, I'm like, what were you doing all those years? Like, what a waste of time. What a waste of energy. But maybe in perspective, I just needed to grow. Meh. Anywho. So the first year, great. Kickoff, personal best, make World Cup team, world team, doing great. Everything's that's 17, that's going into Olympic season, right? The season before, now we're going into Olympic year. So everything's looking great going into Olympic trials. I end up getting sick going into Olympic trials, and I don't qualify in the 3,000 meter, the one that the year prior I got the national record in, and ultimately is like one of my favorite races. So I don't make the Olympic team.
How much time? What's the difference in time? And by you not making it, what was the deciding factor as far as time frame?
I think it was like a second.
1 second.
Or 2 seconds maybe. I can't really remember. It was pretty close. But ultimately I didn't get it. So
by 1 second. By
yes.
one. I want everybody listening right now and watching right now. Think about this. If you were 1 second late to your job, 1 second, one time, just one time in 4 years, bang, bang, you're out. Like,
done.
Okay, keep going. That blows my mind.
So Olympic trials last 3 days. And the first day, 3 or 4 days. The first day was the 3,000 meter. So go in, obviously, mindset, I want to make this team. I feel like crap, but obviously I'm going to do my best. I end up getting second, not qualifying for the event for the Olympics. Well, day 2 is the 1,000 meter that I'm going to race. That's kind of a fun race, but hey, it's a chance to make the Olympic team, so we're going to race it. So going into this competition, in any competition, as an athlete, anybody in general, you have to teach yourself how to deal with those issues, deal with the downs, the failures, and how to reboot, because ultimately tomorrow you can make the team. But if you're still carrying that loss and the heaviness from the day before, that's going to affect your ability. My husband was my rock in that moment. And that night after losing that 3K spot, he got the tickets to get into the venue. And he was like, okay, that's it. Like, we're ripping them up right now. Like, rip them up. You cried, you got it out of your system, but tomorrow's a new day. And we have to reset. And what happened, we can't change, can't affect you anymore. You got to move on. And so ripped them up, went to bed all swollen, and woke up the next day ready to race. The next day, I raced the 1,000 meter. I qualified a spot for the Olympic team, but I didn't have the qualifying time in order to race it. So I got the spot, but I hadn't skated fast enough to race it at the Olympics. So they had to go to the next available person that had skated the time. So another dig, right? Yeah. So then the third day was the 5,000 meter. I chose not to race that in order to save myself for the 1,500 on the fourth final day. So putting all my eggs into this 1,500 meter race. And I recover on that third day, just try to reset, regroup, and get ready. I knew if I skated to my potential, I should make this team. But obviously, I've just had 2 digs to my ego and, my soul the first 2 days. So there was definitely fear going into it. And I remember stepping to the line. I was the last pair. And the girl that I was racing was pretty much going to be, it was either her and I that were going to make the team. And we were the last pair, so we knew exactly the times that we needed to race. And ultimately, I knew I just needed to beat her. And so I stepped to the line, and I remember like tears starting to form in my eyes, just knowing this was the moment. And so I go to the line, I'm like, pull it together. Get ready, gun goes off, and yeah, it was an amazing race. I mean, I don't think it was the best race I've ever raced, but as a whole, it was the ultimate. I crossed the line, saw the time, saw the number next to my name that determined, my placement and actually making the team. Hands go up, screaming, hooting, hollering, and yeah, I had finally become an Olympian.
Is that race? Is it a relay?
Time trial. No, so it's
Time
just
trial.
myself.
Just yourself and that girl.
Yes. So it's
what are you thinking?
trials.
What are you thinking while you're actually racing? Like, are you only just narrow focused? I just got to make my stride, or are sometimes you thinking about like? Because for me, my mind goes different place. Like squirrel. You know what I'm saying? Hot dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that girl ain't got nothing on me. I start singing songs. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's that's probably why I'm not an Olympian, Mia.
Yeah, I don't know. You could be great. That's a great mentality to have. So you train a former Olympian and gold medalist. He told me, you practice how you race so that you race how you practice. So up to that moment, it was muscle memory. But I had a couple of cues that I would try to tell myself, technical cues and reminders of what to do in a certain point in the race. But on that last lap, it was basically just get it done. Like I knew just get across the line. Like everything else went out the window. I wasn't thinking anything, but if I finish this lap, like I'm going to be an Olympian. Yeah.
So you're a super humble person. Like meeting you, you're so gracious. You're so humble.
Oh, thank you.
Do you take any of that humility into a race, or do you just take the killer? Like I'm about to take you out. Like I got you. I'm handling business.
I take too much of it into a race.
Too much of what?
Humility and
how so?
Insecurity, I guess. Also, yeah. I mean, it's the mental game is the only thing that matters. Ultimately, you could train your butt off. You could be the best skater in the world, technically everything, if you step to that line and you have doubt, you're done. You're done. And so it's actually something that I'm working on, and I think I made pretty big gains this year on it, working with a mental coach and my skating coach, and having the confidence when I step to the line and know I've put in the work, just get the shit done, and don't second guess yourself. Don't pull away. Don't shy away from the pain. Like, pain is going to happen, but that's why we train every single day, so that you can work through that pain, and when I came back to the sport and I broke the records and all that, I was ignorant to all of it again, right? I had forgotten about the pain, and it all kind of became just simpler, right? So like with cycling, you're training 3 hours, you're racing 3 hours, 4 hours. So to me, I'm like, 4 minutes, like, you can do anything for 4 minutes. Like, I could suffer for 4 minutes, especially if it's going to have glory at the end, you know? And, but the more that you train, you start kind of narrowing your focus a little bit more, and then you're thinking about every second and every stroke instead of thinking big picture. And the big picture is, I've worked my tail off to get to this point. I'm capable of doing what I believe is possible. And, for me, I started it a few years ago, but now it's more empowering than ever. When I step to the line, so you got your hood on, your glasses, and they're calling you up, your name or whatever. And before the whistle to roll to the line, like, I stand there with like a superhero pose. Yeah. So when you see it, when you watch, like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm there and I'm looking down the ice and I'm like, you freaking got this. Like, there's nobody that can stop you, kind of thing. It's just me. It's just me that can stop me, and like, just get out of my own way. Just let me go. Right. And, yeah, so that's something that, like, the mental game in sport it sucks how much it affects, but it does. And it's great because it's a great opportunity to get to know yourself, how to better yourself, and ultimately get the most out of what you're putting in.
Well, let's talk about the insecurity part, right?
Yeah.
Because this is a part that a person from the outside would look and say, okay, you got a phenomenal marriage. Craig, love you. You're going to be on the podcast when you have like 1 minute off. You got a phenomenal husband. You got a great family. You're at the top of the game. I mean, you're one of 12 in the country. I keep wanting to say that. You're one of 12 in our whole entire country that represents our country and medaled at that thing. Like, there's 12 jobs. You got one of them. There's only 11 other people that could have your job. Only 11.
It's pretty cool.
Your personality is unbelievable. You're super humble. You're absolutely beautiful. You look at all these things. A person from the outside would be like, how are you going to be insecure? Take us to that insecurity, because I think a lot of times that's where people want to place it. Be like, you got an Olympic gold medal. You're at the top of your game. You got a great marriage. You drive a car and film, which you shouldn't be doing. Sometimes you say a cuss word on a podcast that you have to put into the swear jar so Kelly's kids will be able to go to college. You know what I mean? And then you try and cover it up by saying frickin'. Like, I saw that too. I saw that. You pulled back on it, right?
I did.
I saw it. I watched it.
I'm sorry. I'm Italian.
Hey, I'm throwing in the challenge flag on that one. But help me, Mia, here. Talk to me about the insecurity part of it, because I think this is a part that so many, not only women deal with, but human beings deal with.
It's big. That's a big question. I don't know how to answer it. There's not one thing that I could say would drive it, because, yeah, I mean, ultimately I have no reason to be insecure, but it's still something that I deal with every single day. I deal with body insecurity. I deal with the insecurity of not being good enough, of not realizing potential that maybe others, that I'm thinking others have of me. You know, I think I might put too much on all of it, like too much pressure on all of it, that just creates this pressure inside of me that then maybe comes out as insecurity. I know when I was younger, there was a lot. I had a European coach that was very European, and it came you know, with like body image and like we get body comps, you know, all the time.
Uh-huh.
And now
What is a body comp? You moved on, like we all get body comp. I don't know what a body comp is.
So body comp, they pinch a couple, like maybe 6-7 areas on your
Okay.
body, pinch fat or skin,
Mm-hmm.
and that determines your body fat percentage. It now has since gotten to a healthier state. But in the moment, I'm, you know, 16 years old, and all I want to do is make my coach proud. Like, that's something that I think I struggle. I don't know. I think it's a healthy struggle. But like I want to make my coach, I want to make everybody proud. And you know, and that puts a lot of pressure on me and a toll on me. And you know, to this day I have body image insecurity. And just last year, a couple years ago, like, did I really kind of make a switch? It's still a tennis match that I have to play with myself. You know, hitting positivity back, but something switched in my mind that, you know, I can't have these Instagram model, you know, sports athletic models on Instagram body, because that's not what a speed skating champion is.
Mm.
And you know, and getting to the realization of like, my body is my vessel. It's what's going to fulfill my soul's desires. And if I don't treat it with kindness, and if I don't give it the fuel it needs and allow it to be naturally how it needs to be, then I'm sabotaging myself. And for me, I had this image, you know, in my head of what an Olympic champion's body should be. And every single body's different. You know, it's something that you have to accept and realize, and it takes work. That's for dang sure. But you know, for me, a couple years ago, we got a new nutritionist, and she just completely, she changed my career. She changed my life. She changed my career. And yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am today without having that mentality of like, okay, this is what my body needs to be. Like, you know, I would go and I'd get a body comp, and I'm like, God, my numbers went up, you know? And she's like, hey, how do you feel? How are you skating? Like, I was like, well, I'm skating really freaking good, you know? And she's like, done. Then this is where your body needs to be. You know, obviously we want to be as lean as possible because there's no reason to carry extra weight around the ice, you know? So I'm not saying go eat pizza every night, and, you know, there's definitely a balance to all of it. But as a whole, you know, if your body needs to be this way in order to be fast, freaking do it, you know? And for me, I think seeing my finish line of my career has helped me with that also, because I'm like, I got the rest of my life to look how I think I need to look. But in this moment right now, I'm not going to waste any more time and energy on thinking I need to look a certain way. I'm just going to look the way I need to look. And that ultimately is going to hopefully give me the success.
Mia, how can we as spectators? So I was watching a documentary, and it was eye opening to see like Apollo Ono, see a couple of different Olympians, because we think that, oh wow, you're an Olympian, you ride off into the sunset, everything's good, like you're flying on jets, and you're doing all these things, and then to watch right, and you're laughing during it, but this is what a lot of people think, right?
I know, it's sad.
And we think like, oh wow, you got you got that gold, you got the silver, you got the bronze, whatever you got, and we're like, shoot, endorsements are flowing in. You're living that good life, like that's just how it is. How can we, as the audience and potential Olympians, like myself,
of course,
how can we support Olympians? And what do we need to understand as the public that we don't understand right now?
Well, it's nowhere near as glamorous as you think it is. My husband realized that in 2018 when we made the Olympics, and he's like, wait, you have to fly coach over there? And he's like, wait, like your family doesn't get like help or anything? Or to be an Olympian is a complete honor, and I want everybody to realize when you meet an Olympian, they sacrificed a lot. They probably don't have much for what they've put in order to represent their country. There was a professional cyclist that once said, like, I don't care how much money I'm making, I just want to be world champion, and nothing else matters. Ideally, that's what's going through our head. I think that's what pushes us. But respectfully, it sucks because a lot of us are supported by family. In order to become an Olympian, you have to train full time. It's a full time job. We are training 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. We don't have time to work. So it is a sacrifice and a blessing on us to have the support from our families, because otherwise we would not be able to do it. It's sad because we see a lot of athletes not have that support, have to work, and not be able to realize their potential because they're not able to recover as well as they need to. Or they're not able to travel like they need to because they have to work. For us, USB Skating is a nonprofit. We obviously take donations, but for an individual athlete, it's sponsorships, endorsements. That's what we hope for, and it's really, really difficult to get. Really difficult. Our society has created an environment where only gold matters. Gold medals matter. They, hyper focus on a handful of athletes, and those are the only athletes that get the sponsorships because they're the only ones that are exposed. They pick different sports to focus on, and so those other sports don't get seen as often, which then doesn't attract sponsorships. So it's allowing the smaller sports to be seen, publicized, brought awareness to, because my gosh, I mean, we're freaking sexy bodies out there in spandex. How is this not all over the freaking world? But it's like they don't, for some reason, they just don't care. They just care about football, or like it is. I'm not discrediting professional sports that are on TV whatsoever. But when someone hears that a man a person, I'm not going to say a man because I'm not going into that, but a person gets what, $200 million a year to throw a ball? Who's to say that they're working hard, they're more deserving? What is that? What I will never understand that concept. We get paid by the US Olympic Committee only based off our results the previous year at World Championships. And even that, I mean, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't know if I'm supposed to or not, but I qualified for Tier 1 funding last year, and I make $2,300 a month. And it's only given to me 9 months out of the year.
Hold on. Can you say that part again? Because this is the reason why I asked the question, is because most people do. Say that part, what you just said again.
Yeah. 9 months out of the year, Tier 1 funding, the most you can get as a speed skater, $2,300. And you're supposed to live, you're living, so your home, apartment, food, gas, travel, and that's the top tier. So there's only maybe a handful of us that get that. That's incredibly, that the only way to get that is basically be on the podium at World Championships. Tier 2 is like 4th to 8th place, and then Tier 3 is 9th to 16th place, and then the money drops drastically. And then if you're not top 16 at Worlds, you don't get paid. Straight up. Even if you're on the U.S. national team.
This part is honestly, it's mind blowing.
And I hope I don't get in trouble, but
I'm
so tired of it.
Yeah.
Like it's the most disheartening part of searching for that success at the Olympics and like staying motivated. And that's why we lose athletes so often, because they have to go to college. Because when they get done and they're 30, or whatever age they are, they've got to know what's coming, because we have no bank. We have no eggs. Like, we're not able to build anything while we're training our butts off in order to be able to survive once we're done.
Wow. Well,
yeah.
what I want to say to you is, in hearing your message, it's unbelievable to be able to see it. And there's so many companies out there, and there's so many people out there with companies, or even, as far as brand wise, that, I mean, to have a Mia is amazing. To think about your platform, right? So your platform,
I'm trying to tell people that.
No, and it's mind blowing to me, because sitting and hearing you, right? So understanding and knowing that failure is not an option, not meaning that you can't fail, but that failure is like, it's something that we're going to invite, right? In that message, encourage yourself and encourage others to be able to take a shot, because you don't know. The third thing is, make sure that you know who's drafting in front of you and who you're drafting in your life, right? Yeah. And then to think about the fact of the absolute details, those little tiny details, because what you're showing us is that you're working for 4 years for like 4 minutes. And every little thing counts. Imagine if people applied that to their businesses, their companies, their cultures, that every little tiny thing for the one performance of their client coming in, or their one performance of the person accepting their getting their package in the mail that they bought from that company, or stepping in and having an experience. Imagine if they took on Mia's mentality.
You bet. I would assume a lot of them couldn't handle it. Honestly, I think if a person isn't fit to handle that kind of pressure, and be so focused, if they can, I mean, beyond sky is the limit.
How could you
Right.
prepare someone to like, we talked about it the other day on the podcast with a guy named Harry Paul, and we said, you know, you take the same seed, and we know this from a biblical sense, right? You take the same seed, drop it on rocky ground, it doesn't grow at all. You drop it on a little soil with a bunch of weeds. The weeds choke it out, like the boneheads that hung out with you. You know what I'm talking about. Then you drop it on fertile soil, exact same seed, grows a forest.
Yeah.
How do we prepare the seed or prepare the soil for that type of seed coming in? Like, how could you prepare someone's soil to say, like, you just gave us, Mia, you have the blueprint. Mia's blueprint, which should be your book. And I seriously, like, I might know a guy that could help you out with these kind of things, but I'm saying, like, that should be the platform. I mean, Mia's mentality, Mia's mindset, you know, failure's not an option. We're going to encourage you to take a chance. Know who's in front of you and who's behind you, and know when to draft and when to draft that person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Understand the details, and then have a killer mentality when you go into it. Although you're going to still be a human, manage that mindset, because this 4 minutes counts in the 4 years that we're going at it. I mean, that in itself, like, if I read that book, Mia, which I'm reading it right now and I've got to read it, But you said a lot of people couldn't handle that type of mentality. How could you get someone ready to handle that mentality?
Yeah, I mean, just hearing what you're saying, I feel like it's difficult when you have such a big or a broad outlook, like a broad goal.
Okay.
Right? So it's easier for me to be like, okay, 4 years, right? Okay, I've got 365 days every single year to put every single thing into this, and that's going, so it's a bit more short term, right? So I could see the difficulty in going to work every day and like getting burnt out because you're just so hyper focused, you're so driven, every single note matters, you know, for what, right? So I think for me, I feel like the most important thing, and I'm just like visualizing when I'm done with skating, that the most important thing would be to have short-term goals that carry you on to the ultimate goals. And so it's that way it's easier to stay focused. And then you get the reward, you know, to keep you motivated and keep you driven. Because you know, if you're not seeing any progress, you're going to lose hope and you're going to lose drive and passion. And then you're just going to get burnt out and you're going to hate life, hate job, you know. So I feel like ultimately setting realistic short-term goals in order to get to your main goal would keep you the most motivated. I think that would grow the seed.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, when you're like what I heard you say is take your eyes off of the milestones and get your eyes on the inch stones. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so be able to have those little tiny victories that way.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, with my career coming to an end, Milan will be my farewell tour. You know, I'm already starting to kind of get the post-athlete blues a little bit and just trying to figure out what my next steps are. And for me, I think that's where my mind has been going recently is, okay, well, what are some short-term goals that I can accomplish, you know, and what are those look like, and just something to keep me getting out of bed almost. Because, I mean, for the past 15 years, I get out of bed to chase this goal. Well, once I reach that goal, like, now what? And it's finding that new goal and that new drive and passion that keeps getting you up every day.
So most people talk about, and this is what I hear about all the time, it's like, get your eyes off of the result and get your eyes on the process, right? And
Totally.
love the process, enjoy the process. And sometimes there's times where I'm like, yes, you're speaking to my heart. But then there's other times, Mia, where I want to punch that person in the face and be like, I want the result. Okay, but you're the best at this. And the reason why I'm saying this, okay, there's 12 jobs. I'm going to emphasize this again. There's 12 jobs in our country, right, that are available. You applied and you got one of them. Okay? You train for 4 years biking, cross-country skiing. If you're out there, coach, she doesn't like it, so stop it. Swimming, eating right, getting up in the morning, doing all these things for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
How do you stay in love with the process?
I think to be level at this athlete, you got to be a little off your rocker. I mean, you find success in all the little things, right? Like yesterday, I had a bike ride and I had intervals, and my goal that moment was to rock those frickin' intervals. And at the end of the day, I felt awesome and I felt driven and I was ready for the next day because I was able to accomplish those. Um, it's so difficult to stay motivated at times, and it's very important to find balance. I love food, so I go out to dinners and I have my glass of wine, and there's definitely, in cycling they called it happy watts being the amount of power you produce on your bike. And there's a huge factor in that. Like, you can't stay hyper focused, eat exactly what you're supposed to eat every single day, and then not expect to completely get burnt out and just not want to wake up the next day. So I think balance is key in, I would assume anything in life. And then again, finding those, little wins everywhere to just kind of keep you going.
How do you continue moving? Like, you just talked about motivation, right? And there's times where I hear the Rocky theme, not the one that you did earlier, because that one was weak. That one was, I wouldn't get up for that one. But I tell you, this happened this morning. So last night I got ready. I was like, look, I'm gonna be talking to Mia today. She's an Olympian. I gotta come with my A game. So I took out my kit. For those of you who aren't potential or Olympian medalists like Mia, or potential Olympians like me, kits are what you wear when you ride your bike. It's spandex. It's aerodynamic. It ain't cute on me.
It's sporty.
I don't know about that. I'm looking like the penguin. I'm looking like the penguin from Batman out there. So last night I get my kit out, set it on the see Mia, and I'm going. 5:30 came. I hit that snooze button. I was like, look, Mia, understand. I said, it's dark outside. And Mia, I didn't ride my bike this morning. How do you do?
Hey, that's okay.
Thank you, Mia.
It's okay. It's so important to listen to your body. That's it. It's so important. If you wake up and you're not motivated, well, maybe that's your body telling you that you shouldn't do it that day.
What if that happens 364 days a year?
Then we have a problem. We should address that.
How do you get, because there's days where you get up and on that, those training days and you don't want to go. How do you get there?
You have to trust the process. Ultimately, you have to trust your coach, right? It's very important to know your body, understand your body, know the difference between laziness and fatigue. No fingers pointed. But really trusting the process, right? So my coach writes our program. He tells me what I'm supposed to do that day. I have to trust that doing that is going to make me great. And in turn, that's just trusting the process. I trust him to give me off days when he thinks I need them. And if he doesn't, I tell him that. There's many ways that we measure our fatigue and our recovery status. And so, you look at those, they're numbers. So ultimately, get a feel for the numbers, realize how your body's feeling, switch that mindset. Am I being lazy or am I actually fatigued? And if you're just fatigued, talk to your coach. Be like, hey, I'm super tired right now and I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. He's like, either he's going to be reassuring, like you're supposed to be, and that's okay. And this is the day that you need to push yourself through. Or he'd be like, okay, well, maybe we just take the afternoon off. Or maybe we sleep in that day. So ultimately, you're just listening to your coach. So I'm proud of you.
Well, I appreciate it. My coach this morning was my own brain saying, you need to stay in the
And
bed.
when it's dark out, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right now it's terrible.
I am going to commit to you, Mia. I am going to commit. I'm going to hear the actual Rocky song tomorrow. I promise. I will get up and I will
But
ride.
I will say the biggest thing is take one step, right? Like the alarm goes off, just stand up. Because once you're in motion, things start happening, right? And so if any strength you find that morning is just to get up, then just stand up. Just stand up. You're like, okay, well, I'm up, so let's go into the kitchen. Let's have some toast. All right, well, crap, I'm up, so I might as well put the kid on. And it's like, God, I'm going to feel so accomplished after I do this ride and I get home and I'm sitting on the couch having my milkshake. I'm going to feel so rewarded and happy. And in turn, you're going to want to do it the next day because that feeling and satisfaction is so addicting and so powerful. But the hardest part is taking that first step.
Wow. How do you manage that addiction though? Because when it transfers into, when you said it's an addiction or that feeling, how do you manage that when you go into personal relationships though? Because a lot of times in personal relationship, what I found, and maybe this is just me,
probably not.
Drive, like I learned it from my pop, like it's that, I've called it pit bull mentality. He called it pit bull mentality. You lock your jaws onto something and you do not let go until the limb comes to you or they kill you. This works really, really well when you have a focal point and maybe you're building a business or you're building whatever you're doing, like speed skating, things like that. Then when you come into a relationship or personal relationship, interpersonal with people, sometimes that becomes
a huge problem.
Yes. How do you manage it?
Well, it's been 6 years and we're still working on it. Golly, how do you manage it? So the most powerful thing that I've learned from my partner is communication. And without communication, nobody knows what the heck is going on. Egos are crushed, feelings are hurt, expectations aren't met. So yeah, when we started dating, it was so difficult. I was this super driven, independent woman that, thought it was super simple to just do one little task, when apparently that isn't always the case. When you choose to be in a relationship you have to take on all that responsibility. And what comes with it is understanding and communicating feelings and expectations, and most of the time, like, telling yourself to calm down.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges, and help me with this, is when you're a results person, right? So
Sure.
I just talked about it today earlier, lowest common denominator. Never thought that I would use that term in my life because
I
my
saw
math
that, yeah.
teacher, I would tell my math teacher all the time, like, when am I ever going to use this stuff? But lowest common denominator, for me, it was all about systems, right? So I found your system. Like say you and I work together. I would find your system. I would find any little thing mentally and emotionally that wasn't serving where we were going. And then I would ask you to cut out a little thing. And I would ask you to cut out a little thing. And I'd ask you to cut out a little thing until we distilled it down into 2 or 3 things that you did that you could focus on that would make you jump to a completely other realm. I'll give you an example. 3 of them. Number 1, be kind. Add to every environment that you walk into. Contribute to it. Number 2, make a ton of friends. And number 3, stay really, really curious. Like those 3 things distilled down literally open every single door that you could possibly understand.
Love that.
This does not work in interpersonal relationships because say when my wife comes to me with a challenge, instantly,
Fix.
don't tell her. But literally, I'm like, but just don't tell.
Oh,
Nobody
Craig's
tell
the
her.
same way.
You did this. It didn't work. Stop doing that. And she's like, no. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. How do you navigate that?
So I had the opposite, right? So I'm not the communicator. Craig is. I get it done. Don't talk about it. Like, you have a problem? Okay, let's fix it. Like, what are you waiting for? And he's like, well, no, like, that's not how it works. And so then it needs to turn into a communication because clearly I'm not understanding something and that he understands, right? And so, but then it also, I mean, he does it in the same way. Like sometimes I just want to talk something out. I don't need you to fix it. I can fix it myself. I just want to talk about it, But I swear, ultimately, it's just communicating and understanding how each other work. Like, there were the first few years, bicker, just because we didn't understand how each other worked and processed things and wanted how we saw things being accomplished. And, we work on it to this day. There's moments, but we have learned how to communicate, which is a whole nother thing, right? Like, you don't just, what do you want? Like, what can I do? There's a whole tone aspect and everything. But it's so freaking corny to say, but it's so true that a relationship is work. It's not always easy. Like, yes, it gets easier because you put in the work in order to understand your partner and make it work. It's a choice that you're making. And just like anything in life, if you work at something hard enough, you're going to get better at it. And in turn, you have a happy, loving relationship.
Gweeny is amen in that right now. Gweeny, little guy. So
I love Dad.
I love this too because honestly, it's a chapter of your book. Like when you put in the work, it gets easy. I mean, think of that title on a chapter, and then you go into you're talking about like all the work that goes in the cross country skiing coach. She doesn't like it.
Different aspects.
You know what I mean? And all those things. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, because I mean, and that goes with anything. Speed skating. The harder you work, You know, Michael Jordan, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? Like, the harder you work, the easier that race is going to get because you trust it and you believe in it, you know? Yeah, that's cool.
Let's
That's a great perspective. I like that.
well, talk to me about the proximity too, is because we just got a chance. The second time I saw you after you saved my life on the mountain, was at the Vibe Room in Salt Lake City. And there was what I call proximity, right? And so there was a room full of people. Now it's a live version of the podcast. This came because people started asking, like, can I meet Mia? Could I be in the studio and meet Mia? Like, yeah. And so we created an event. So now we have the podcast live, which is the Vibe Room. But what was amazing to me is the power in the room wasn't on the lights on the stage. It was the people in the audience. Yeah. Can you talk about the proximity part of it? Because, you know, it seemed like you felt almost safe because you are around people who, I mean, you were around people who are accomplishing and doing things that are in line with what you're doing.
Oh, I felt inferior.
None of us did. None of us felt it. I mean, none of us felt that. We were all like blown away by you and Emery and, you know.
Well, and like I said earlier, like it's so powerful for me to have the opportunity to be in an environment like that, or in any environment, because it makes you realize, it takes the blinders off, right? Like, it helps you realize how accomplished you are, right? Because it's something I live every single day, is this sport, and it's something that I'm crying over one day and, you know, hoot and holler over another, but I never realized the impact that it makes to the people around me and within my family and my core, and then you just don't realize, like, I mean, I'm like 8-time national champion, you know, like, that's a huge deal, but to me, it's just another race that I have to race in order to get to the next step, in order to reach the ultimate goal. And so I know, I mean, I can't be the only one, but it's amazing for me to have the opportunity to be in a position like that night at the Vibe Room, to interact with other people, not only hear their amazing accomplishments and be completely, you know, captivated and, you know, and energized, but then to also have the opportunity to recognize myself and, you know, take it in and be like, yeah, like, I'm pretty freaking awesome.
Mia, how crazy was it we had, for those of you who don't know, we had Larry Namer, who's the founder of the E! Entertainment Network. We had Lonnie Paxton, 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Patriots. But how crazy was it to hear from Larry about some of the stories that he was going through? What were the ones that made your jaw drop, like, even further? Because I watched everyone's jaws that night.
Well, I think the ultimate one was when he mentioned Putin. He was like, oh yeah, and that guy was Putin. And everybody's like, right?
We have to give some context to this, because some people I'm going to get canceled here in a second. So my buddy Larry Namer founded the E! Entertainment Network. We were talking, and he said he took concepts of TV that were here in America, and he took them, and he noticed that there was a hole in Russia where they weren't doing this stuff. And so he took it over to him, had the idea. He ended up working with a guy who was early on in his military career, and then he said he raised through the ranks, and he's like, oh yeah, it was Vladimir Putin. I was like, oh my, what? So I want to give context to this part of it. And then our buddy, which is your friend now too, Mia, he said, like, he wrote the legislation for entertainment in Russia. And oh yeah, another country came to him, which is called China, and said, we want you to write it for us.
Like, only American or something to be involved within the entertainment business. and was the
Oh,
first to put like a gay man on TV in China. Like, what?
yeah.
I go in circles. Like, I don't belong here.
Well, it was an amazing room. So many people got mad at me because they were like, "Hey, can I come?" And honestly, it was a packed room, and that was even without the Edison House. I want to give a huge shout out to them.
Yes.
But with the Edison House, there was very few of their members that made it that night. Had they made it, that was 30 more people that would have been in the room, which would have been unbelievable.
You gotta do it again. It
Yeah.
was an amazing night. So impactful, empowering. I mean, I would recommend to every single person I know.
Thank you. We're working with them because we're probably going to do 4 or 5 a year. They're in Salt Lake.
Amazing.
And I think we might just have an Olympian on the stage to be able to share the story. I don't know if you know any. I don't know if you know any, but
I could probably name a few.
well, I want to speak some life to you right now because Mia, you were talking about that transition into. I mean, obviously, Milan is the next one, right?
Correct, in 26.
In 26. So we're going to go ahead and smash that one.
Yes.
But what I want to speak some life to you in is I want you and your husband to go back and to listen to the episode because your platform is in this episode. Your platform is so monumental, and all the components are in those are here. And I talked about them. I alluded to them. I'll go over them again. And even when we're done here, I want you to. I'd love to be able to spend a couple minutes after just to be able to talk about it. But it's amazing to be able to see that platform because there's so many kids that need to know that failure is an option. Like it's an option, right?
It's a part of the process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And they need to be encouraged. They need to understand and you're not coming from a side that says like, oh, you need to have the right person drafting you because I've drafted with the right people all the time.
Right.
You need to have the right person.
I've been guided the wrong direction.
Right. And so to be able to look at those components, I just think I think it's so cool. So what are we doing right now to get prepared for 26? So we're 3 years or 2.5 years away, right?
2.5. Yeah. So what a lot of people don't realize is within the 4 years, we still have World Cups and World Championships every single year. So those are those little wins and, little goals to keep us motivated. So right now we're actually ramping up our race season, and I leave on Sunday for Milwaukee, and we have our World Cup trials. From there, we come back home for 4 days, and then we're gone for 5 weeks at World Cups. And it's all a part of the process. Each World Cup, each race I do is motivation and a moment to get better and closer to the Olympics in 2.5 years.
Who's the ultimate companies that you would like to work with as far as endorsements?
That's a good question. I guess I don't have like specifics, but
So if I was Mia, if I was a speed skater and I was just like I want to speed skate sometimes, I would be able to get to the Olympics. No, I have to figure out. I want to get to the Olympics. That's my focus. So who's a brand that you've seen that you say like I could add value to that brand? I could think of 10 of them. Bucked Up in Salt Lake, if you're watching, Bucked Up, there is an Olympian that would love to represent your product. You know what I'm saying? Like Keen Tech was in the room. You saw Tim Paget from Keen Tech. And I don't know that there's any alignment, but I don't know a company out there that wouldn't love to have an Olympic endorsement.
Yeah, and that's what's difficult for me being on more of the humble, modest side is, I don't know what I can contribute to companies that are outside of my realm, like what I do, right? And I don't know, like my head first goes to hair products. Like I got great hair, and like or like jewelry or makeup, and something to the effect of like, to be an Olympian, you don't have to, forget about your looks, or you can still feel good, or like having great hair empowers me. I get my nails done, and that's something that empowers me. Like that makes me feel beautiful and sexy, and which in turn gives me confidence. And so like there's a bunch of like little things like that that I've thought of, but that's it.
Well, you're on the right track, and it's wild because I think from a company standpoint, a lot of people are like, I really couldn't get to Mia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, Mia, I want to let you know, and I'm going to shout this out while we're here. Like, there's going to be some stuff coming in the mail. That's going to be coming in the mail to you very, very soon, and those things, I think that once we get a target on it, I mean, there's so many people out there that their brand is so amazing. They're doing so many great things, but to have a voice like yours,
Yeah.
can you imagine? What's the one in Milwaukee? What's it called?
Milwaukee?
What's the race in Milwaukee?
Oh, fall trials.
Okay, fall trials.
Fall World Cup trials.
Okay, can you imagine? Say, for instance, I don't know. I mean, this is just throwing it out there. I'm not saying on the track because you can't wear anything on the track because, you got your stuff. But I'm saying, what if there was some apparel or there was some stuff and you happen to be at the trials and you turned your phone on yourself and said, hey, I'm at the trials. I'm working for this. I'm doing this. I'm Olympian, blah, 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 blah. And I recommend, and you just happen to be wearing this stuff.
No, totally. Yeah. It's totally, we're all game for that. Any opportunity that we can get to, support ourselves, but then also to grow our sport. Our sport's dying.
Can you wear anything? You can't wear anything on the kits.
Yeah, I can.
Can something be printed? Can something be printed on the kit? It can?
Yeah. Like if, say I get, I don't know, a hair, swab, or something, right? And like after my race, I take my hood off and my hair's down and it's flowing into the wind, and like you got the company right there on my skin suit.
Do they have, now obviously during the Olympics you can't have anything.
Olympics you can't.
But all the trials you can. All the trials you can.
So this coming race, so qualification. So anytime I'm basically racing as kind of an individual, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not a part of Team USA yet next weekend. Okay. And then I make it. And then at World Cups, I can have personal sponsors on my skin suits also. And World Championships. Just not the Olympics.
Actually, I'm not going to release this part of the podcast because no, I'm just joking with you. No, many
opportunities out there.
These things are so amazing, and you can imagine the platform of being able to speak to young girls, in the not only just in the speed skating sport, but just in sports in general. I mean, high schools, colleges. I mean, it.
Totally.
I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to be Mia's agent. That's all I'm trying to be. I'm just trying to be Mia's agent.
I ain't got one, so holler.
Hey, that's all I'm trying to do. Hey, Mia, I started the podcast because of my kids, Maddox and McKenna. And I wanted to, I never wanted them to worship idols. I just wanted them to be inspired by icons, like yourself. And and especially with my daughter, it's huge because she's 14 years old, and to see an incredibly powerful, focused woman like yourself that has integrity, that has a phenomenal heart, and that has crazy work ethic like you do. What advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could call yourself Auntie Mia, it would be awesome.
I would say as a whole,
you got to say their names. You got you got to say their names. Maddox. Thank you.
Auntie Mia here. I would say trust your gut. Love your parents, but ultimately have fun. Whatever you choose to do, make sure you're having fun, and that there's a difference in not reaching a goal and it sucking. Someone always told me that never quit on a bad day. because you're just, your brain's not right in that moment. And so never quit anything on a bad day. If you wanna step away, make sure it's after a win of some sort. And always, love what you do.
Mia, you have been absolutely phenomenal and absolutely incredible.
Thanks.
It's such a pleasure, and for me, it's nice because when I told you and Emery, you have to tell me your one other friend that was from the Vibe Room.
Sarah Warren.
Sarah Warren. So Sarah's actually going to be on the podcast too.
Awesome.
So
she has a great story. Yeah.
Well, Mia, the cool thing is when you force people to be your friends for the rest of their lives, like I do, you don't have to be in a rush for anything, because I'm not trying to ink a deal. I'm not trying to do these things. You just get to settle in because like we're going to be friends for forever, and it's going to be cool because my kids seeing Auntie Mia as they grow up, they're going to see not this Olympian, not this elite athlete, not any of those things. They're going to see Auntie Mia. Oh, by the way, she happens to be one of 12 in the world, in the country that has this job, right? And, and at her job, there was only 3 people in the world that got something. And she got one of them. She was 1 out of 3 in the world at her job. But I want to thank you for that. It's just it's my pleasure. But it's cool because I want you on the podcast more because and we're gonna have more episodes. And when you release your book, I'm saying it, when
you get the first
I want the first copy. I want it autographed. Yeah. I want that, and I want you to write it out to potential Olympian. You know what I mean? Aspiring, not getting out of bed, not even standing up. I didn't have the toast this morning.
Fatigued, you said not lazy.
You said a milkshake after too. You said a milkshake. I was like, damn, I'm in for the milkshake. I'm in. So it is honestly, it's been a huge pleasure. I want to thank all our sponsors out there. Every single person. Poppington's, my son, the first time he said the word exquisite was when he tasted Poppington's popcorn for the first time. He turned to me. He's 11. He was 11 at the time. He's like, "Dad, this is simply exquisite." And I was like, "Boy, you never used that word." But he told me, he said, "Dad,"
he never felt it before.
he said, "Dad, if it's not Poppington's, it's simply popcorn." And I was like, what are you doing, son? So I want to thank you. I want to thank Chris Noggle, Volvo of Las Vegas, too, Findlay Volvo Cars of Las Vegas. And also, too, if you want to check out the Vibe Room, the apparel is out also, too. Now, people have been asking me about it. It's out. It's on the click the link in the bio. But any company out there that is even considering an Olympian that would endorse their product, check out Mia Kilburg. She is absolutely incredible, and I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Mia, you have been unbelievable. It has been my absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and you are officially off the hot seat. I believe that one's going. Here it comes.